My name is Roman Djindjihashvili, and this is DVD about one of the most important aspects of positional play. Or we should say, one of the most important aspects of the game of chess. So, the theme of our DVD will be very strong outposts and taking advantage of a powerful knight against poor bishop. We have had a couple of DVDs where we discuss it, but this is going to be only about power of knight versus bishop in certain positions and how to play those positions. And I have to point that without mastering in that, you will never, nor anyone else will ever make good chess player. Will never make reasonable chess player. So let's start talking about it. It was very difficult actually to select games and examples on playing with a powerful knight versus bad bishop. Sometimes it's difficult because there are not too many examples. In this case, it's the opposite. There are thousands of examples, very good examples. But we had to take most important ones. The way I selected examples for this DVD is where we have this powerful piece in the center and how to use it, and showing it in a few different aspects of it. Using it for attack, using it for positional play, using it for endgame, and that's what I am about to start talking about. Here's the game. It was played in the year 2000 between two masters. They are not very famous players, but this is two masters, and they are good enough to show us how to play the game, or in this case, how not to play the game. Game was not won by white, but white's position is completely winning here. Completely winning. They have this dominating knight, an open file, versus absolutely dead bishop on c6. Let's see what happened. In this position, it's black's move. Black played a6, king f2, rook e6, and here white played move that has absolutely nothing to do with this position. They went g4. Well, in order to know why this is such a bad move, I have to explain this position. In this position, white has advantage of a super powerful knight, and they have c-file. All their actions should be conducted on the left side of the board from the center, from the e file to the left, which meaning center or the queen side. So any action on king side would be wrong. Rook c3 would have been one of the good moves. g4 has nothing to do with the position and has potentials of black bishop on c8, which is at this moment reminds more of a pawn than a bishop. Now it has potentials of coming up alive. So g4 is absolutely bad move. And after g4, it's almost clear that white is not going to win. Not because after g4 they still have very big advantage, but it's clear that white is on a wrong track. So fg, any changes in position. Now this position favor black. Now this position is more like dynamic than static, and white needed static position. F, G8, G, now king G7. Rook F3, rook E to E8, B3, absolutely out of touch with reality. After B3, bishop D7, and now another very bad move, rook F to C3. Now, if white wants to get the C file, then they should have gotten the C file. And the way to do that, after rook F to C3, actually, this is not possible because what happened in the game, rook takes C3, rook takes C3, and rook C8, and game ended in a draw quickly. But we will go to the end of it. But the correct way was rook takes C8, forcing to take the rook with the bishop, because rook cannot take on C8 because bishop on D7 is hanging. So now after bishop takes C8, rook C3, and after king G8, rook C7, white is still winning. And after rook C7, B6, now white simply should be able to march with the king on the king's side. Absolutely had nothing to do, all this plan, with white's G4. White could have played everything the same without G4. But once you are on the wrong track, you play to the end of the game wrong way. Rook takes C3, rook takes C3, rook C8, rook takes C8, bishop takes C8. Now white has more of a symbolic advantage than a winning advantage. G5 was played. White realizes to have activate their knight, they have to protect their pawn. Also, black has potential of playing H5 and making a pass pawn. So G5 was played, bishop F5. That's exactly what I was saying about, that black has potential of activating their horrible bishop. Now bishop is on F5, and this position cannot be won. White still made several absolutely meaningless moves and pointless moves, and game ended in a draw. Bad play by white, but very good example for us. Here is the beginning. Here is the position which is absolutely winning for us. Black went rook e6 and no G4. What do we do here? Rook C3. You have to hope, and rightfully, that you're going to open the C file at some point by going possibly B4 and A4. For example, king E7, B4, and I don't know, there's not much black can do. Maybe king F6 and A4, and go B5. Now if rook moves, black simply loses a pawn and loses the game. So, and B5. So C file is where you want to conduct all your actions, and absolutely by no means not the king side. So when I saw this, and I saw G4, the first thing I looked at the opponent of white's rating. White had master rating 2250, and I don't think anyone with a rating over 1600 should make this move. This is positional equivalent of hanging a queen in a quiet position. That's how bad it is. And very bad game with rightful result. Result is rightful after G4. White does not deserve to win. And that's what I mean, that it's a result justify the G4 move. Okay. Now, I want to see some games on a very high level. Now you're going to see perfect execution of the great outpost for a knight. Well, here is the game. It was played in 1962 by none other than Bobby Fischer against quite famous at that time Argentinian player Julio Bolbocha. E4, C5, knight F3, D6, very popular Najdorf variation. And I remember this game attracted me because Fischer played one of my most favorites against Najdorf, H3 move. Knight C6, G4, knight takes D4, queen takes D4, E5, queen D3, bishop E7, G5, knight D7, bishop E3, and knight C5. Well, knight C5 has to be played because taking on G5 is very bad for black, because after bishop takes G5, queen takes G5, and queen takes D6. Now black must play queen E7, otherwise they cannot castle and cannot develop pieces. Then after queen takes, king takes, knight D5 check, king F8 and castle. Black's position is absolutely awful. So knight C5 was played, which was a correct decision. Queen D2, bishop E6, castle by both sides, and F3. Obviously F3 is played to protect the E4 pawn, and knight has intentions of going to D5. Rook C8. We don't have that outpost position and knight versus bishop yet, but we are getting there. King B1, knight D7, H4, B5, and very powerful move. You want to have knight on D5, but in case black takes, it's not so easy to keep this outpost controlled by minor piece. And queen's position on D5 is never stable. So what Fischer does, he wants to exchange the light square bishops first. He went bishop H3. Well, a lot of commentators, they criticize Bolbochan for playing bishop takes H3, rook takes H3, and giving white total control on D5 square. Well, it's easy to criticize, but it's difficult to show something much better. For example, on queen C7, there will be H5. Now white wants to go G6 and eventually force black to take on H3, and which will be absolutely terrible. And after B4, this position, after knight D5, bishop takes D5 and ED, which is different position from outpost, but is absolute positional disaster. It's disaster because bishop on H3, which black didn't take, is very, very powerful. Pawn on B4 is hanging, and something like A5 can be met by G6. and black is facing absolutely devastating threats that they cannot even defend their king position for few moves. If f takes g, I think there is almost a forced mate. Bishop check, pawn takes g6, and there is no need to tell you what two rooks, two bishops, and queen will do to a lone king on h8. So in this position, Bolbochan, who was pretty solid player, what he did, he simply played bishop takes h3. Well, position is already very difficult for black. Rook takes h3, knight b6, and there we go. Bishop takes b6, queen takes b6, knight d5, queen d8, and now white has to convert position. It's a big positional advantage to convert to a win. You cannot take position with a big advantage such as this and go to the tournament director and claim a win. No, you have to convert it to a win. And how we do that? Remember, in a previous example, we showed how poorly black tried to win position and let white try to win and let black's bishop in the game. Fischer in this position played f4. f4 is a very strong move because it opens the f file and tries to attack opponent's king. This is not an endgame position. This is middle game position. It's very difficult to exchange rooks and queens, which will be good for white, but it's very difficult to do. It's a lot easier to attack opponent's king. Remember, when you have such a powerful piece, maybe a monster on d5, you have to create a play around this piece to use this piece to your advantage. f4, white opens position after f4, ef, queen takes f4, without opening black's bishop. Black's bishop never got into the game. Actually, black's bishop later on got into the game just about a move or two before black got mated. So queen takes f4, queen d7. And here, we have huge positional advantage with white. Position doesn't win by itself. We have to redeem this position. What would have been a bad mistake is knight takes c7. Powerful knight for lousy bishop and winning a pawn, because now white does have an advantage, but this advantage is absolutely minuscule advantage comparing to one white had. Obviously, this knight on d5 is worth a lot more than an extra pawn. So white did not play knight takes c7. In this position, white played queen f5. Of course, queen cannot be taken because knight takes c7 check. After queen f5, rook c to d8. And here, white continues to pressing on black's weaknesses. Rook a3. Queen a7 must be played. There is no other piece that can protect black's a pawn. A rook cannot be protecting pawn because queen is hanging and there is no other piece. Queen has to go to a7. It's nearly forced. Now rook c3. You see how using his powerful knight, white tries to penetrate rook c3, g6, queen g4, And position is definitely lost here. Queen d7. Now white doesn't want to exchange queens. Queen f3. They have pressure on f file, potential of h5, and threat of rook c7. Queen f3, queen e6, rook c7, rook d2 e8, knight f4. Temporarily dislocating the knight, attacking the queen, and because next two moves are absolutely forced. This is the only square for black's queen. Rook d5, and queen went to h8. This is very poor position for the queen. And now white simply plays waiting move. Black is almost in Zugzwang. Knight is not on d5, but it will get there whenever it's needed. After a3, h6 was played, but now white's pieces are so powerfully placed that white doesn't mind to open position to deliver the final blow. G takes h, queen takes h6. That's where the bishop opened already. But it's almost closing time now, because black's king is under severe attack. Bishop g5 was played, and there bishop came into the game. H takes g, f takes g. Of course, if black tries to take the knight, this will be absolute destruction. After some exchanges, rook h5, and next move, white takes black's bishop on f6, because queen f6 is not playable, and it's absolutely resignable. So black simply took on g6, and now queen b3. You see this queen b3, black finally took the knight. I don't think they have much to lose here. Rook takes f4, rook e5, king f8, rook takes e8, and black resigned. After king e8 and queen e6 check, followed by queen c8, they get mated. Well, the way Fischer won this game was most precise way. But I bet you, if you take someone not in Fischer's position, not in Fischer's strength, but relatively good player, they could have won different ways, because white had absolutely devastating attack on the king, but they also had huge positional advantage. There are multiple ways this position could be won. We just showed you the most precise and accurate execution of this advantage. To me, it was very powerful game, and I think it was one of the best examples of taking advantage of super powerful knight with the d5 on d5 outpost. This upcoming game is a more sophisticated and more difficult than Fischer's game that we looked, and the reason why it's more difficult because player played with black was much stronger player. Although Bolbochin was a good player, player with black was Shirov, and player with white was none other than Garry Kasparov. Well, I have to point it to you that some of it could have been, and I believe it was, some home preparation. But we don't care about this. We care about the way position is played. Whether it was home preparation or it was created on a board, it's still power of positional understanding and playing stays there. Well, very well known Sveshnikov variation of Sicilian defense. As we know, Sveshnikov variation can be played with the several different move orders. And this is move order knight db5, d6, bishop f4, e5, bishop g5, a6, knight a3, b5, knight d5, bishop e7. Here white exchanges dark square bishop to have the very strong outpost on d5 knight, but this is all been played so many times that it's very difficult to prove white's advantage. Well, let's see what happened here. c3, bishop b7, knight c2, knight b8. It's just famous maneuver trying to relocate knight. You see, knight on c6 is restricted by c3 pawn, and black is trying to get knight to a better position. So they went knight b8, a4, b takes a, rook takes a4, knight d7, rook b4, knight c5. In this position, white made a move that can be understood either by very strong player, can be understood, or by other players not that good, if you explain them all essence of the position. And rook takes b7 is the simple sacrifice of a rook for a bishop without visible compensation at first. Knight takes b7 and b4. Let's see what just happened. Let's take the position before the sacrifice. In this position, black has a light square bishop that somehow has a pressure on white's d5 knight. They have very strongly placed knight on c5. By playing rook takes b7, white eliminates that bishop, and what was the strong knight on c5, it made it look absolutely useless. Knight from b7 hardly can come to the game ever. Besides, white has absolutely dominating knight on d5. The other knight will be coming to a3, c4, and they have full control on light squares, where black has a bishop that more of a burden than active piece. It can never be active given this pawn structure. So after b4, I would be very, very unhappy playing this position for black. Bishop g5, knight a3. It's interesting, Rivka says the position is approximately equal because there is a difficulties of put many positional aspects to put it on a computer language. However, she does not give black any advantage at all, having an extra exchange. So after castling knight c4, and black is playing a5. Obviously, white cannot touch the b pawn. B pawn has to stand on b4 at all times to keep knight restricted. That's why you sacrifice a piece to have a couple of useless pieces which fully compensate your material deficit. So after a5, bishop d3, a takes b, c takes b, queen b8, h4. And on bishop h6, knight cb6, rook a2, white castles, rook d2, queen f3. Okay, we made, since sacrifice, we made almost 10 moves. Has black made any progress for their knight on b8? No, and they can't either. After queen f3, queen a7 was played. Right now, white is trying. White won't mind getting their exchange back with knight d7 and knight takes f8, keeping a big positional advantage. So black played in this position queen a7. Then knight d7, knight d8. Well, rook a8 could have been played, but then after bishop c4, you see the threat of knight e7 check. And terrible weakness on f7 makes black's position very scary. And that's where Shiro decided to give up the exchange and trying to put the knight on e6 and d4 to activate the knight. So what happened in the game, knight takes f8, king takes f8, and there is b pawn that was controlling black's knight on b7 all this time. Now it becomes very powerful pass pawn. And after b5, queen a3, queen f5, with a deadly threat of queen d7, this bishop doesn't make any difference if black takes that bishop. Queen d7 will just end the game on the spot. After queen f5, king e8, bishop c4, domination, complete domination continues even after white got the exchange back. Rook c2, now queen takes h7, rook takes c4, and of course it was all precisely calculated by Kasparov. Now knight b6, king e7, knight takes c4. Remember, the position, the combination started where white gave up exchange. They were exchanged down with big positional compensation. Now they are exchanged up. The difference is black has no compensation at all. After knight takes c4, queen c5, there's a rook a1. It's rook a7 is coming in case knight is taken. And this is already not the part that is important. Rook a3 was played. And after bishop c1, another shot, knight e3. Knight is coming to d5 or f5. Of course, in case black takes the bishop, then knight f5 wins the queen and wins all black's pieces as well. So very well conducted game. And I want to make a point here. It's not like knight versus bishop only. Here is the critical stage of the game, absolutely critical, where white plays a4, take, rook takes, knight d7, and after rook b4, knight c5. In one shot, white makes all black's pieces permanently hopeless. Rook takes b7, eliminating only strong piece, light square bishop, and getting the knight on b7 permanently out of the game. And knight on b7 is terrible. Bishop on f6 is terrible, and white has absolutely dominating pieces. There are no open files, and white's minor pieces they brought them a deserving win. Very, very powerful game. As I already mentioned, it's difficult to select proper games for this DVD because there are so many of them. And I could never even dream that one of the games out of all thousands that are out there, one of the games I would select would be game played in 1931, 80 years ago. But nevertheless, I did select this game. The game is very powerful. It was, and at the same time, very easy to understand. Was played, I think it was played perfectly, but none other than Aaron Nimzowitsch. And that's why this person invented a lot of positional aspects that we still use here. And Blockade by Nimzowitsch, this is a good example, and also example of super powerful outpost for the night. We're going to go quickly through the early stage, the opening stage. We don't want to really concentrate on it. And the knight c3 was played. D takes e, knight takes e4, knight f6, knight g3, c5, bishop b5 check, bishop d7, bishop takes d7, knight bd7. Actually, I don't want to stop even for any comment in the early stage of the game. Knight f3, queen a5 check, c3, queen a6. You see, preventing castling, and if white wants to castle, they have to exchange queens. That's what was played. And rook c8. Black has comfortable position. The position, of course, equal. Castling, e6. Bishop f4, bishop e7. Rook fe1. Knight d5. Bishop g3. And c4. c4 was played to get the outpost for knight on d5. Knight on d5 stands very well. Knight e5, knight takes e5, bishop takes e5, f6, and bishop g3. Now from this point it becomes very instructive. Black has tiny advantage with the knight on d5. In this position, if white plays knight f4, it's black's move, then this advantage will be gone. Knight on d5 will be exchanged, and that's why g5 move is preventive move. It's a prevention against knight f4, keeping knight on d5 as powerful as it is now. g5 is very strong move, f4, and now h6, supporting the g5 pawn, which supports the knight on d5. Rook a d1, king f7, rook d2. White makes series of pointless moves, but it's hard to suggest anything better because knight on e2 is extremely bad. So after rook d2, b5, rook f1, rook h to e8, rook f3, and now g4. That's an interesting move, driving rook back, and now f5. Now white almost never can exchange the knight on get rid of knight on d5 for black. So at this point, I think black is winning. It's amazing to see how 80 years ago Nimzovich played this game, and his technique was impeccable, absolutely great. So what do you have to do? You have a knight on d5. How do you win this? You have to create play that will support the presence of the knight. Now, when you go b5 and b4, you have a lot better bishop. You see, dark square bishop, blacks, is much better than white's dark square bishop. So attack should be a5, b4, and try to penetrate on b5. That's exactly what black is aiming for. White plays bishop f2, rook g8. It's absolutely unnecessary move, but you know, this position is static and no move would make damage to black's position unless they do give up a pawn and make some blunder. So rook g8, g3, h5, king g2. So far black is not doing progress, but bishop d6, this position can tolerate loss of tempos. And bishop d6, rook c1, h4, rook d2, d1, rook h8. This is a wrong plan. Eventually Nimzovich coming back to the right plan. There is not much progress can be made on the king side. And the way you can determine it, because you see that if you play on a king side, even if you open h file, you cannot get your knight on d5 and bishop on d6 participate in that attack. So you should play on a queen side, and that's what we're going to see eventually. Rook d2, king e7, rook d to c2. Now, a series of aimless moves, rook e1, rook h7, still hoping to double on h file, rook a1, h takes g, h takes g, and now black is playing a5. That's something they should have done maybe about 7-8 moves ago. Rook c2, c1, rook c2, h8, and rook to h1. Well, unexpectedly, black gets what they want by opening h file. They exchanged all rooks, and this favors them. Better was to play bishop g1. Well, now those rooks are absolutely useless on h file, and then black would have to swing them to the queen side and continue the queen side play. However, after rook h1, all rooks came off the board. But what did it do for black? Black's rook would have been more active if black played b4. But what did it do is white has two extremely passive pieces. And most important detail about those exchanges that black's king has no problem penetrating on the queen side. With rooks on the board, that would have been a lot more difficult. After b4, king g2, a4, now threat is a3, and pawn has to be taken. Bishop takes b4, king f1, and there comes the king. King c6, bishop e1, king b5. Now we don't mind exchanging bishops because next move is going to be a3 or c3, and black king penetrates queenside, which will end the game quickly after that. So after king b5, knight c3 check, bishop takes c3, pawn takes c3, and now this position is hopelessly lost. You see the perfect example. This is as big of a positional advantage in the end game as you can ever get. Well, material advantage would have been different, but here you have everything you need to win. I guess you even have a lot more than you need to win. King c6, again, we're entering the stage where moves don't make much difference as long as you can go back and forth and eventually get to the position that you need. Knight e4, bishop is absolutely motionless, king e2, king d5, king e3, knight d6. Actually, king d6 was played. And again, as I already explained, this is not an important stage of the game. They repeated position, and now black played knight d6. King e3, knight b5, bishop d2, knight a3, bishop c1, knight b1, and this is ironic that white must play bishop b2. Ironic because this powerful knight that black has and helpless bishop cannot be exchanged by white. If white plays bishop d2, black is going to make this exchange that otherwise look like a blunder to end the game. That's like redeeming your advantage. And after king e4, king e2, and a3, you see next move, black's king penetrates to d3 or f3, and the game is over. That's why in this position, white is forced to play bishop b2, and then a3, bishop a1, and this is totally hopeless. King d6, king e2, king c6. It's a little triangulation. Now if king comes to e3, then after king d5, you see king e4 is going to be next move. And it's interesting to notice that if white plays king f2, after king e4 and king e2, black wins immediately with knight d2 move. And now black is in Zugzwang. King has to take the knight, and after king f3, what black is going to do, take on g3, take on f4, and push these pawns. Bishop on a1 is absolutely useless, smothered, and white has no moves. This position should be treated as a pawn ending because the bishop on a1 is absolutely useless. So the game continued a few more moves in this position, but it's obvious that it's totally hopeless after this, and white resigned very soon. Very clean and very precisely played. Well, when I say precisely, of course, black lost a lot of tempos. Well, they didn't lose, they wasted some moves, not tempos, moves, because when you go back and forth, position doesn't change. So more moves made, but on the wasted tempos, white couldn't take any advantage. So basically, very well played game. Every game I showed so far is where white or black has good outpost for the knight in the center. And in every game, it was converted to a win, or not converted to a win because of a bad play, with the different plans. When you have dominating knight in the center, you, according to position, you have to play on a deep end game, for a deep end game, or you play for tactics using that knight, or you're playing for attack, for improving position. And in every example, plan was different. Here is the game that was played in my presence in 1972 in Moscow between Anatoly Karpov and Mark Taimanov. E4, C5. We're going to see now very different approach to the position with outpost. E6, D4, CD, knight takes D4, A6, bishop D3. Those two players played so many games with Sicilian, and Taimanov, I don't think he has ever in his life played on E4 any other opening than Sicilian. So after knight B3, bishop B6, castle, knight E7, queen E2, knight C6, bishop E3, knight E5. This is all the opening moves first. C4, bishop takes E3, queen takes E3, queen C7, and C5. Well, we're going to get soon position to the position with outpost. Knight takes D3, queen takes D3, B6, white takes and black takes, and white goes knight D2. And here, Taimanov played D5. Well, there is a big positional threat of knight C4 coming knight D6. So D5 prevents knight C4, and now E5. And here we got the position. White has good outpost for the knight on G4. Bishop D7 was played. Rook F to C1. Black castled, queen D4. White doesn't mind going to the end game where they're going to have very strong knight on D4. And if this knight gets, well, in this position, if this knight ever gets challenged, there is second knight to take the position on D4. Taimanov didn't like this endgame, and I don't blame him. So he played queen B8. Now knight F3, the other knight is preparing to take the outpost. After knight F3, knight C6. Queen E3, rook C8. Rook C5. A5, rook AC1, A4, and knight D4. Okay, white accomplished its goal. Knight is on D4. That is the outpost that white is going to keep to the rest of the game. After knight d4, knight a5 was played. There is no way black cannot take on b2 because they are simply losing the piece. And if they take on d4, then white can take with the queen first. And the knight on d4 is still, the d4 outpost is still saved for the knight on f3. So white has very big advantage. Knight a5 was played, trying to go knight c4. Rook takes c8, bishop takes c8, and b3. You see, when you have outpost for the knight, it's not only important that you create a play and blast your opponent with using this outpost. No, it's also important to restrict your opponent's pieces if you can. And this is exactly what is happening now. After b3, bishop d7, now white plays h4. Eventually white wants to start attack on the king side because they have knight on d4. It's a lot more difficult to organize play on the queen side because this bishop on d7 will be playing and black has all its pieces on the queen side. That's how you determine where black has problems getting its pieces on a king side. So play has to be conducted on a king side using what? A very powerful knight on d4 and very strong pawn on e5, which gives you space advantage. So h4, h6, and white has no problem playing g4. It's not weakening your king because there is no single piece of black's can come to the queen side. After g4, queen b7, h5 was played. g5 is coming. Well, actually g5 immediately would have been okay also in an h5, g6, getting outpost for the second knight. But there is no rush. Black has very bad position. Knight c6, now g5, knights were exchanged, but you see the other knight is on d4 now, hg, queen takes g5, and king h7. After rook c3, it's obvious now that black's king is absolutely hopeless here. All rook on c3 will go to the king side, knight on d4 is very close to the king side, and queen on g5, three big pieces attacking, and black is going to be absolutely hopeless. Queen b4, attacking rook and knight, rook g3, threatening mate on g7, rook g8, and there it is. Now knight comes to f3. When I mentioned that knight on d4 is very close to attacking black's king, here all three pieces participating in the attack against black's king. Game ended real quickly. AB, AB, and queen takes b3 was played. Well, a little better defense would have been queen f8. Then white plays knight f4 and knight g5. Position is extremely bad for black. However, black chose easy way out of it. They played queen takes b3, and after queen c1, it's all over. It's a quiet move, threatening knight g5 check, and winning black's queen on b3, and also knight g5 check, winning the pawn on f7. There is no defense now after queen c1. Queen a2 was played, knight g5 check, king h8, knight takes f7, and now there is a deadly mating threat after queen g5, queen b1 check, king h2. Black simply has no move. If queen f5, then this is a checkmate. So very well conducted plays. Believe it or not, if we go to middle game position, let's go to position here. You see that knight on d4 practically controls all center of the board. And after knight a5, white has green light attacking blacks after taking, and very important b3 move restricting the knight on a5. Now white has green light attacking black's king. Well, a knight on a5 is hopeless, so white can do anything they want, and little attack on the queen side will be decisive. It's a very good example. You see, now we just used this big outpost and dominating knight on d4 and the blockaded position in its center for delivering final blow on the king side. Those examples are extremely important, and if you studied them without knowing how to play these positions, it's almost impossible to make significant progress in chess. That's why it's good to study from the games of very strong players. And this is one great example of it. Next, two examples, two games, are little different type of outposts for the knight than we have seen before. Outposts that we've seen that when knight has one very strong point, it stands there and dominates. But there are some positions, some games, like this next one, where outposts, black has swinging outposts. Let me explain you what I mean. e4, e5. Game, by the way, was played between quite famous grandmaster from Argentina, Miguel Quinteros, and Bent Larsen, very famous Bent Larsen. Knight f3, knight c6. Larsen is black, and he played very good positional game. Knight e7, c3, a6. Knight e7 was played, well, Larsen, we know, always likes unorthodox opening, although knight e7 is a part of the theory. Bishop a4, d6, d4, bishop d7, h4, h6, and white played h5. Well, after ed, knight takes d4, knight takes d4, c takes d, and d5, e5. We're going to go quickly through the opening moves. Queen takes a4, knight c6, bishop e3, queen d7. Black has some kind of control on the light squares. You see f5 square, e6 square, and position, in my opinion, approximately equal. Knight c3, and here, very good plan. What black is intending is getting control on light squares. In order to get control on light squares, you want to get rid of white's knight on c3 that can possibly interfere with it. So bishop b4, and after bishop is exchanged for knight, bishop on e3, white's bishop, cannot be controlling any white squares. And then knight can get some good outpost. Bishop b4 is a very good positional move. Queen c2, both sides castled, and that indicates that there will be kingside attacks from both sides. When normally in a chess, if you castle on the opposite sides of the board, that's the case. There will be attack on both kings, especially when the center is closed, and that's the case in this position. Bishop takes c3. Now, after white castle, black doesn't want knight on c3 to escape exchange. Bishop takes, queen takes c3, and now very preventive move, f6. f6 because black doesn't want to be run over by f4 and g4. After f6, f4, and now a5. What is the idea of a5? Is to go a4, a3 and checkmate it? No. Idea is to go a4 and then knight a5 and knight c4 to get outpost for the knight. a5 is good preparation for it. a3 and now a4. It looks like big mistake. Why would black play a4 and close the position when they can go b5 and try to go b4? b5 is a huge positional mistake because, first of all, you don't open any position on the queen side, and then it gives your knight absolutely no options. a4, of course, is a very good move. King b1, knight a5, and there it is. Knight got an outpost on c4. And I will tell you later, we're going to look later what the swinging outpost means. So knight a5, queen d3, knight c4, bishop d2, f takes c. White took with d pawn, because now if they take with f pawn, black is also going to have very strong g file, and queen g is going to come to g4 position. It's like white is going to be losing on both sides of the board. So d takes e is absolutely forced. Rook a to d8. Well, to protect the d5 pawn in case bishop moves. So I don't know if it was the best move. After bishop c1, b5, and there is absolutely dominating knight on c4. Well, after b5, rook he1, rook fe8, while preventing white from playing e6, rook fe8, queen f3, c5, rook d3, d4. You see, black's pawns in the center are moving. White's pawns are not moving. Why is it? Because of the knight on c4. Knight on c4 prevents white from playing f5, and black is moving, and now they are about to get concrete threats if they go b4. Now after d4, rook e2, d1, and here is very powerful move, knight a5. Now let's explain this position. Suppose you have this position, what you have to do? You cannot go b4 now because you're going to lose pawn in its center, and now knight on c4 loses outpost, And this is not the right thing to do. You need to go c4. Knight goes to a5 and to b3, where it's going to support the d pawn. And after that you can go c4. So you're swinging knight from one outpost to second outpost on b3, and that makes your pawn chain moving and delivering the final blow to white's position. After knight a5, which is very powerful move, white is absolutely lost. g4, knight b3, rook e1, and c4. You see, this couldn't be prevented. So after c1, rook d1, and now b4, white must take, and d3. What that means is white's king is absolutely smothered with this pawn structure and with the knight, and black wants to go a3 and penetrate with the queen on a4. The game is over in just a couple of moves. And after d3, bishop d2, a3, b takes a, knight d4, it's just removing knight from b3, and after knight d4, queen f2, queen a4, there is no need to continue. Bishop c3 was played, knight e2, rook cannot take the knight because white loses both rooks, and after knight e2 attacking c3 bishop, there is no defense. Bishop b2, queen c2 check, white simply resign. On any move there will be c3, and it's all hopeless. Beautiful game, swinging knight. Well, this is like where black had great outpost on c4 for the knight. They decided to move the pawns. Now knight is on the way, but knight luckily has second outpost on b3, where pawns become mobile, and that will end the game. This is absolute great example of positional play that gets you to the mating attack, and it's another example of using dominating knight versus bishop. Two outposts we have seen in this game. Very, very instructive game. Now, watching this game, I played game in 1977 in Hastings, England, where I won the tournament. It was very good year for me. And I played game against American Grandmaster James Tarjan. And game was also, I got advantage of having knight versus bishop and how this knight was swinging from one outpost to another. Let's look at this game. I was black, it was Nimzo Indian, and I was very big fan of Hubner variation in this opening. E3, c5, bishop d3, knight c6, knight f3, bishop takes c3, pawn takes c3, d6. Now black's idea is to play e5 and get type of position where knights are better than bishops. And this type of positions are close positions, of course. So e4, e5, d5, knight e7, and knight h4. Now this was played before, and it was played in a Spassky-Fischer match. And in this position, after knight h4, h6 was played, and f4. This is exactly position from that game. And I analyzed, and I have my own opinion about it, and I was watching Fischer-Spassky match in 72. I was watching it in progress. So after f4, knight g6. That's the move Fischer played against Spassky, and knight takes g6, fg, and Spassky played f takes e. And commentators to this game said that this could have been a wrong decision. It would have been better to castle. And that's exactly what Tarjan did, who followed the modern theory at that time. Castle, and I castled also. And now queen e1. After queen e1, white wants to play queen g3, and they want black to take on f4, in which case it's going to be very difficult to stop e5, and this is not a good idea for black. So after queen e1, bishop d7 was played, and on queen g3, queen e8. We cannot let black's bishop to get to f4, so we are not taking on f4. But now there is a threat of knight h5, and after queen e8, white played f5, and I played g5. That's the position I was aiming for. I mean, I was aiming for this pawn structure, and I think position is very good for black. They have a knight. That's something white doesn't have. And in these close positions, knight is very good. Of course, knight has no outposts yet and no concrete mission that can be assigned to a knight. But once positions changes, knight will have certain future. So after center was closed, and in this position, white played queen h3. To stop knight h5, I guess. Well, it doesn't really stop it, but on knight h5, they can simply go g3, and knight on h5 is not placed well. So after queen h3, queen h5, endgame is very good for black. Queen e3, a6. Notice knight g4 doesn't do anything because of queen g3, will be just waste of time. a6, bishop d2, and b5. So we try to open position a little to create some battlefield where knight may be active. After b5, rook a to e1. Rook e1 is played to get an additional support for e4 pawn. I played b takes c. And before taking on c4, white played bishop e2, queen f7, bishop takes c4, bishop b5. Here, black is trying to get control on b file and penetrate with all its pieces, and knight on f6 will have a decisive role in the game. So after bishop b5, queen d3, rook f to b8, h3, queen b7, bishop c1, trying to guard the b2 penetrating square. Bishop takes c4, queen takes c4, and now I played queen b5. I want to exchange queens because after exchanging queens, it's going to be a lot easier to penetrate on b file. White has no choice but exchanging queens, but at the same time, this queen takes b5 will be disastrous because I will take with the a pawn and then play rook a4, and you're going to see the e4 pawn is hopelessly lost, and so is a pawn. So white has to exchange queens, but by playing queen e2, which is also very good for black. Rook b1, king f2. King must have assigned the mission of protecting the e4 pawn. After king f2, rook a b8, king e3, and rook b5. Rook b5 has idea possibly playing rook a5 and rook a4, attacking the e4 square pawn. King d3, rook a1, rook c2. Well, idea was penetrating rook to b1, but now very strong move. c4 check. You see, this knight has dominance over the bishop on c1. King takes c4 looks really terrible for white, so they played king e3. After c4 check, king e3, rook to b1, rook to e1, and here comes the decisive maneuver. Knight is getting its outpost. Knight h5, coming to f4 and d3. After knight h5, king d2, knight f4, rook g1, knight d3, pawn g3, and it's very pitiful position. They're absolutely immobile, so they can't move anything. But black has to deliver the final assault. After g3, king f7. It may not have been necessary, but it doesn't hurt to get king closer. King e7. And after rook g1, king d7. King come closer, it's for free, because all white has to do is to play with the rook on a back rank. And after king d7, rook f1, now I got a clear plan how I wanted to win the game. a5, and everything is forced. It's easy to see the forced win when you know that your opponent cannot move anything. Now after rook g1, knight c5, rook has to protect the pawn, and knight b3 check. Everything is forced. Every move is forced. Pawn has to be, knight has to be taken, c takes b, and this tactical shot is not, it's like logical thing, because in positions like this happens, this has to be happening because black has such a big positional advantage. After c4, a4, you see, there is nothing white can do. They cannot play king c3 because rook a takes on b2, and there is no move, absolutely. They played rook e3, but then rook takes b2 check, rook takes b2. I could have done it move before, but this one even easier. And white simply resigned here. On king c3, simple a3 move. It's a very good, very instructive game on using. Sometimes you have knight. You know that knight is better than bishop when there are 8 pawns on board from each side. And you don't know exactly where it's going to be used. When you continue your plan of making progress with your rest of the pieces, eventually your knight's mission will be a lot clearer. That's exactly what happened in this game. And it wasn't very difficult to play for black. Actually, I felt like I was playing this game and everything is like it comes by itself. And well, once you have a knowledge of what to do in these kinds of positions, it's just executing what you know. It's like in any other subject, in math, in geometry, in science, everything. Whatever you know, you're using your knowledge. And there is not much imagination in this game. But it was very clean and very instructive game. Here is one very, very instructive, in my opinion, position where we have knight versus bishop. This position is slightly different from typical outpost positions, but it shows dominance of knight against bishop. This is from my game that was played in 1972. This is the same year Bobby Fischer played Spassky in a World Championship match. Well, at that time, in 72, I was already quite strong master, and I played this game against another international master from Russia. I am 2 pawns down. And it's very interesting that I believed that I'm not worse, I may even be better. These pawns on a3 and c3 are totally useless, they are not moving. Also, knight on f5 is much better than bishop on c1, and black's queen and rook are placed very nicely. So, if I wanted a draw, I thought I was better. I would have made a draw easily, but I played this position for win. And it's interesting to see how it develops. I found it very instructive. Rook c8. In this position, queen e1. My opponent still tries to hang on both pawns. Queen b3. Now I'm going to take c3 pawn unless it's protected. And if I take with the rook on c3, my rook is going to penetrate on c2. So white played bishop d2. Queen takes a3. Now we are only 1 pawn down. Queen e4 was played. Rook d8. You see, black's pieces are very, very active. Bishop e1, and now we have to strengthen our knight on f5. I played h5 to prevent g4, and my piece position, it fully compensates extra pawn for white. Queen f3, queen a4, tying the queen to the f4 pawn. Now, queen takes h5 is a bad idea because then another pawn is going to become very weak on e5. So, of course, white didn't play. They played h3 and queen c4. Let me evaluate this position for you. By no means black is worse. Black may be slightly better, but main problem for white is that for the rest of the game from here, they have to make moves that don't damage anything, and that they cannot play active. So they have to stand and wait what happens. And very passive position, very, very difficult to play over the board. So after queen c4, white played g4. Well, they are not doing what I just said to do. I said they should sit and wait. They went g4, and I don't blame him. A lot of players would be very annoyed with such a passive position. H takes g, and knight e7. Now our knight on e7 has to find a new home. So, since play is only on one side of the board, this is old rule. There is no queen side in this game. So knight is better than bishop. Plus knight has potential outposts. That's what happened exactly. Rook g2, rook b8, trying to go rook b1. Bishop g3, and there is another outpost for knight on d5. f5, and the farther white's pawns go, the more weaknesses it will create for them. Rook b1 check, king h2, and queen c6. Queen e4, rook c1, attacking the rook. Now rook c1, rook b2. Now white is hoping to play rook b8 check and play fe with a check. They are already not protecting their c3 pawn. After rook b2, queen c8, guarding the back rank. F takes e, f takes e. Knight is still dominating on d5. Bishop on g3 is completely useless. White is here in much worse position. They have to commit themselves to total defense. So after fe and fe, rook f2 was played. Rook takes c3. There we go. Now pawns are even. Black's piece is much more active, and they have better minor piece on d5 than white's bishop on g3. Rook takes c3, queen g6. Of course, this doesn't go anywhere, because after queen d7, every square is protected by black. Queen h5. Now knight e3. Now we are using the outposted knight. Knight e3, bishop f4. Let's just repeated the moves. Knight d5, bishop g3. Of course, I don't want to draw here because I think I have sizable advantage. Rook c4, now intending knight e3. Rook f3, preventing knight e3, but knight e3 anyway. It was overlooked by white. Now if rook takes e3, queen d2 check wins the rook. And importantly, there will be no perpetual check because black is going to have queen h6. So after knight e3, there is a threat of knight takes g4. g5 was played. Now, because there is no other way of protecting g-pawn, now knight f5. Now knight gets permanent outpost on f5, and white's position is very, very difficult. After the knight f5, white could have played g6. They didn't. Well, I got a point that g6 doesn't really do much, because first of all, we could go knight h6. And knight g4 is coming, and rook c2 is coming. There's a multiple threats. So white simply played king h3. But now queen c6, king h2, and now rook c1. You see, rook cannot move now because there is a queen h1 mate, and now white played g6, but a simple tactical shot here, not very difficult, ends the game. Rook h1 check, king moves, black is going to take the queen, and if king takes, then knight takes g3, rook on f3 is pinned, winning the queen, and game is over. You see, the position that we had, as it's not as bad as it is difficult to play. Black has dominance position of every piece. Maybe white can hold. Ripka was saying that white may be able to hold it, but it's so difficult to hold it. The hold. Maybe Ripka can hold. No human being, I think, on the highest level can hold this position in real practical games. So what I want to say here, by looking at this dominance of outpost of the central position of the knight, it can be and should be used several different ways. It can be used in defense, in creating decisive attack, in the end game, in mobility, many different ways. And also in the first example I showed you, in one of the examples I showed you how it should not be played when black had completely winning end game and white had completely winning game. And they blew up. They made a wrong plan. If you watch this DVD carefully, from beginning to the end, you will notice that every example was selected carefully. And I'm repeating it to you for the third time on this DVD, that we had tens of thousands to choose from. I selected examples where this outpost and this strong position of your knight can be used multiple different ways. So if you watch this DVD carefully, you will definitely do yourself a great favor, and you're going to learn a lot. And I hope you had fun watching this DVD, and I hope you found it very, very instructive. Thank you very much.